Welcome to T&Z Talk with radio veteran Tony Trupiano and Huffington Post blogger and writer at Liberals Unite, Richard Zombeck, where they do lean left, but always talk straight.
And we do always talk straight. Everybody, welcome to this Wednesday, June 29th edition of T&Z Talk. I am the T in T&Z, Tony Trupiano, and of course, my more than able co-host, the professor himself, the Z in T&Z, Richard Zombeck. Richard Zombeck, good day to you, sir.
Hola.
So let me ask you just a general question. Let's say you're in charge of, I don't know, let's say you're Secretary of State for a minute. Just, pick something. Vet or you own a dry cleaner or whatever. And something happens that's horrible. And you feel bad about it, and you did everything you could, and it just wasn't enough. And, in retrospect, you look back and say, gosh, had we only done this or done that. But you didn't, and you got to live with it, and I get that. But on top of that, then a group of guys decides that what you did was murderous and horrible, and, you were negligent, and all of these things that make you feel even worse. But then they go on and on and on, spending somebody else's money to continue to investigate you, only to find out 2 years later, that, well, we didn't know anything now that we didn't know 2 years ago, and frankly, it wasn't my fault. How would you feel about that?
Are you talking about Bush and Cheney? Reagan. You talking about Reagan and what happened under his watch?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking? More recent? You mean you're not talking about Hillary Clinton and Benghazi, are you?
Well, I happen to be doing that.
Ben effing Ghazi that we've heard about for the last 2 years. I gotta tell you, it's raining like crazy here. I don't know if you can hear the thunder in the background.
Nope.
Oh, well then maybe our listeners can't either.
I would assume that would be true.
But it's raining and thundering here.
Okay, what does that have to do about Benghazi?
I don't know. I was just concerned about the quality of audio on our little podcast here.
All right. Well, you're good. I mean, you're completely good. So she's been exonerated. That would be Hillary Clinton. And an 800-page report that the GOP put out and the almost 400-page report that the Democrats put out, you begin to wonder in these 1,200 pages where we learned nothing that we didn't know before, where over $7 million in taxpayer money was spent to do an investigation, where families had to continue to rip the scab off of the 4 people that were lost in that horrific nightmare. Only to find out that, interestingly enough, the ambassador's sister came out publicly and said she did not blame Hillary Clinton. Nor should she blame Hillary Clinton. But, see, this is, indicative of something that Mrs. Clinton has had to deal with for the last 25 years. And the Clinton family, for that matter, and now they're even going after Chelsea a little bit.
Well, why wouldn't they?
Well, she's old enough now. They're not in the White House, so she's not off limits, right?
I guess.
And I realize that we have a ton of audio, but I'd like to talk about this a little bit first because, seriously, dude, putting myself in that situation, understanding the sincere and utter sorrow that she must feel. The lying that's going on by Donald Trump, insisting that she was sleeping. Apparently he put out a tweet said that she was responsible for the murder of 4 Americans. The murder of 4 Americans.
Actually, it was one of his surrogates that put that out.
Oh, I'm sorry. But certainly we can place it at the feet of Donald Trump because, frankly, your surrogates are out to represent you. I've been a surrogate. I understand that responsibility, sir. I was a surrogate for the gentleman, the Democratic the candidate for the gubernatorialship of Michigan in the last election cycle. I was also a surrogate for the AG candidate for the Democratic Party in the last election. So I understand the importance of being a surrogate, as do you as a respected journalist. And so it really does fall at the feet of the candidate. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
Or you're hesitating there. Why is that?
Well, no, because I was thinking about something stupid, and it probably isn't worth mentioning. I'm just remembering like people blaming the Bernie Bros on Bernie.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I think there might be some validity to that. But I just got an email from him.
Oh, come on.
I just got an email from him in the last half hour, and not personally, but of course I'm on his mailing list. And he's basically now trying to overtake the platform committee, and in search of people, the delegates that are going to be there, to make sure that the platform is as liberal as it can possibly be. Blah, 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 blah. He's not giving up. He's got this in his jaws, and he's not letting go.
Yeah, he's kind of he's jumped the shark, screwed the pooch, pooched the possibilities, effed himself.
Yeah, he did. And as of course, many people have now written, somebody needs to tell Bernie he lost.
Well, and I saw another article in Politico too that Elizabeth Warren may have blown her chances as well.
How?
By upstaging Hillary.
No, I don't believe that for a minute.
It does.
That
it does
that
make
did
sense.
Hillary a lot of good. You know what? Before we go any further, can I mention the phone number?
Yeah.
All right. We do have a phone number that people that listen to the podcast can call. And you can leave a message. And just so you know that if you do leave a message, chances are excellent we will play it on air. So keep that in mind. That number is area code 559-898-2551 or 559-TZ Talk 1. That's the number 1.
That's so cool.
Absolutely, and you're responsible for that coolness. So we want to encourage people to do that. We also want to encourage people to make a financial donation. We consider ourselves to be a part of the independent media, and we'd like to do this advertiser-free, which I'm sure all of you would appreciate. But we need you to step up and do that. Anyway, the number again, 559-898-2551 or 559-TZ Talk in the number 1. All right.
Yeah, and the website is well, everyone knows. I got yelled at for that, right? We got an email about so it's tandtalk.com. You can go there, find out how to make a donation, and also go there right now and subscribe to our podcast via iTunes or any other podcasting app of your choice. You can do that right off the front page, and the support page. You can either scroll down to find it, or there's a link in the top right-hand corner that will tell you the myriad of ways that you can support TNZ Talk, the voice of independent radio.
There we go. That was nice, actually. I like that.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad at all. So, we have a situation, and again, we'll stay away from Bernie for a moment. We'll get back to not the investigation, but the way the investigation is being manipulated by those on the right, and especially Donald Trump. And by the way, he just gave a speech in Maine where he talked again about Hillary Clinton dismantling the Second Amendment, which she would, of course, never do, nor could she do. And the crowd goes wild, just screaming wild. And you said something to me earlier today that you said the other day. We're in a post-fact world.
Yeah.
Explain what that means to people that don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump can go wherever to his events, on TV, anywhere, and say, Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren are lesbian cannibals that eat babies, and they're going to come and steal your babies. And not only do Trump's followers believe him, but the media doesn't question him. All they do is they say, hey, look what Donald Trump said today. Hey, look, he said something again. Hey, look what he said. And nobody says what he said was total and utter garbage. They just say, hey, look what he said. And there's no fact-checking. There's no... And that when there is fact-checking, it immediately gets blamed that it's a biased liberal media trying to shut down Trump by his detractors and by Trump. So really, in this day and age, if you're a politician, you can just go on TV, on the radio, on the internet, Twitter, Facebook, and say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's any fact behind it or that you need to present any evidence. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Just say whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Well, what's interesting about this dynamic is we're seeing in some of the polling, and I don't want to get too deeply into this part of the conversation, but we're seeing some of the polling that actually places Donald Trump as being more honest than Hillary Clinton when he is fact-checked. He lies 98% of the time. There was a great story in the New York Times yesterday. Maybe it was the Washington Post.
Oh,
I think
the New York Times, that biased rag.
Yeah. That said that Donald Trump had promised, this is just astounding, millions of dollars to charities, and they could only find $10,000 worth of donations. And when I posted that story, somebody
in the last 7 years.
Right. Somebody on my personal Facebook page says, my husband and I have given more to charities in the last decade than Donald Trump has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh. And I assure you, they're not billionaires.
Well, and here's the thing, right? So I say I have a 2-foot penis. Right? Now...
I didn't see that coming.
Now, what's your reaction to that?
Well,
aside
you're getting
from laughter,
my reaction to that.
Aside from laughter, right? You're going to say no, you don't, right?
Right.
And I say I do. I'm telling you, I do. And then your next comment might be, well, you're going to have to prove it.
Yeah, that would be my next comment.
Right.
Show me, dude.
Right. And then I go on national TV and on radio and say, Tony Trippiano wants to see my penis. What kind of sick, twisted individual is he?
Okay,
right?
fair enough. There's some symmetry there. You're right. This is
the kind of discussion we're having in politics now, right? Is you just say whatever you want, and then someone calls you on it, and you go, "What? They don't even know the truth. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they want me to prove it. I don't have to prove anything. I get my information from very reliable sources, like my pants, in my case."
Right. Well, thank you for giving me a chuckle. All right, so let's go back to this surrogate of Donald Trump's that said that in no uncertain terms that or put out a tweet that said Hillary murdered the Benghazi ambassador. You've got some audio on that. Let's play that, and then we'll chat about it some more.
Let me do a complete about-face here. Nima Malik, I want you to take a look at a tweet that just came out from Michael Cohen, who is one of the chief advisors for Donald Trump. He's worked within the Trump organization. He said this: the NBC Wall Street Journal poll has @Real Donald Trump beating crooked Hillary on honesty and national security. This picture says it all. And if you read what the meme says, and I'll quote the meme here: "I presided over $6 billion lost at the State Department, sold uranium to the Russians through my faux charity, illegally deleted public records, and murdered an ambassador." This show is called Legal View because we know a thing or two about the law, and Michael Cohen is a lawyer. That there is libel. To suggest that a woman murdered an ambassador, look, it's not as though Hillary Clinton's team is about to go and launch some litigation on this, but that's pretty strident stuff.
It is strident, and I think it again goes to what has been Donald Trump's problem, this very sort of undisciplined, shoot-from-the-hip campaign, and Michael Cohen, again, isn't affiliated officially with that campaign, but he's been a longtime aide to Donald Trump. I remember covering Donald Trump in 2012 when he was sort of pretending that he was going to run for president back then in New Hampshire, and Michael Cohen was there. And Donald Trump was often on the phone with him as well. So I mean, again, this is the kind of strident language that has sort of been surrounding the Donald Trump campaign, often coming from Donald Trump himself.
Can I show you a tweet that Michael Cohen, the author of this one from moments ago, put out 2 years ago? There it is, folks. Have a look at what Michael Cohen thought of Secretary Clinton being received by two great Americans. Hillary Clinton, presumably being one of the great Americans, and Patrick Kennedy, presumably being the other great American at the Kennedy compound. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, because you know what? Benghazi had happened 2 years prior to that tweet. And apparently Michael Cohen thought she was a great American 2 years after Benghazi, and now he does not. Also, Nia Malika, just quickly, is it Michael Caputo who resigned after the Ding Dong the Witch is Dead once Corey Lewandowski was fired for that kind of a language in a tweet? I mean, Ding Dong the Witch is Dead is not Hillary Clinton murdered an ambassador.
Yeah, I mean, again, Cohen isn't officially affiliated with this campaign, and Caputo decided to step down because he thought he was going to be a distraction to the campaign after he tweeted out that reference to the Wizard of Oz in relation to Corey Lewandowski. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we've heard things like this emanating from the Donald Trump sort of orbit, and so it's not really a surprise, and we'll see if there's any sort of pushback from the campaign to Cohen.
Let's be clear that this is a distraction. I mean, that same NBC Wall Street Journal poll that he's referring to that has Trump ahead on honesty or trustworthiness has Clinton ahead in actually winning the election by something like 8 points.
Yeah, and there's an ABC News poll as well out today that's showing Hillary Clinton ahead in fighting terror as well. I mean, I'm sure that he'll want to tweet something about that. But you know what? Let's just be really frank here, people. Don't call someone murderer of an ambassador, for God's sake. It's offensive to Americans who really want the truth and what's going on in politics. Please give us a break. Campaigning. Errol Lewis, Nia Malika Henderson, Christina Alessi. Thank you. Nearly lost my cool.
Thank you.
Well, I did lose my cool.
Wow.
I did lose my cool.
Well, you know, it's hard, you know, and let's for a moment talk about serious journalists. She happens to do a show about law and the facts of law. But, you know, serious journalists are becoming increasingly more frustrated and more public about that frustration. I mean, certainly George Will would be the greatest example, but there are others. You know, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, I don't think they've had Donald Trump on in weeks now.
Yeah, I know. And the thing, you know, like here's kind of what's happened to me, right, over the course of this election and pre-election is I don't have to report to an office and go in front of a TV camera and wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and schlep my ass to work and get on national TV and talk about this stuff day in and day out. If I did, I think I would be looking for a new career. Because
I'm with you.
It's got, I mean, you and I can talk about this semi-sarcastically and snarky. They have to maintain a level of professionalism, and they have to be careful not to offend anyone, like advertisers or their boss, or any other conservatives in the newsroom, or who's writing their checks, or who could shoot them, you know. And you walk a fine line. You walk a very, very fine line. And it's, you know, I joke to you is that we're finally going to be able to spend a lot of time together because when Trump becomes president, he's probably going to put people like us in Guantanamo.
Well, I guess there is that possibility now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh.
You, me, and Matt Taibbi.
I guess I shouldn't be, but I'm astounded. I continue to just be absolutely astounded by the ludicrous nature of this beast. You're a pseudo fan of Shep Smith on Fox News. He has become much more vocal in the last year plus as it relates to politics and especially Donald Trump. And although he does lean hard right, he also has a brain and uses it. And I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I mean, the thing, when we had the Ebola scare, right, he was one of the few people on Fox to come out and say, listen, this is how you get Ebola. This is how it's transmitted. You're not in danger. It's not crossing the border. And people who are saying that are ridiculous. And he was talking about, another person who's become a favorite of ours, Lindsey Graham, who went on during the Ebola crisis. Ebola is coming over the border with ISIS, and it's going to kill us all. And, and Shep Smith was on Fox News saying, listen, this is crazy, and you need to stop listening to this garbage. So this is Shep Smith talking about the Benghazi charade.
The House committee investigating the deadly terror attack in Benghazi today released its report after a 2-year, $7 million investigation, the 8th investigation to date. The authors of the report make no new accusations and provide no new evidence of wrongdoing against the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. But the report does blame the Obama administration, the CIA, and the U.S. military for responding too slowly to the attack. Quoting from the report, despite President Obama and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta's clear orders to deploy military assets, nothing was sent to Benghazi, and nothing was en route to Libya at the time. The last 2 Americans were killed almost 8 hours after the attack began, unquote. The committee's chairman, Trey Gowdy, says the report does not target Secretary Clinton, but Democrats on the panel have accused him and other Republicans of doing exactly that. The Democrats released their own report on the committee's investigation. They say the military could not have done anything differently to save the lives of the 4 Americans killed in the attack. Ambassador Chris Stevens, the State Department officer Sean Smith, and former Navy SEALs Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods.
There it is. Straightforward.
It's interesting because one of the takeaways from this investigation, and I think it's important to point this out, is that the locals, if you will, that were trying to defend the embassy were loyalists to Muammar Gaddafi. And the reason that they were doing that is because they understood the importance of the American intervention there. Stop and think about the gravity of that, Z.
Well, right. So, you've got, like you said, locals defending the American embassy. And, but Tony, it's stuff like this that just gets cast to the wayside, that nobody seems to care about. And this is all about making, and it's not just about making Hillary Clinton and Obama look bad because they did something wrong. It's just to put the idea in people's heads that she's a dangerous individual. And there's a lot of things you could go after the Clintons about, legitimately. But instead, we're going to go after them for something that never happened and that they were not at fault, and spend millions of dollars in taxpayer money just to put an idea in someone's head. And, my other question is why aren't there more arguments about what happened at the embassy under Reagan and under Bush and, all of those that were tragedies that there was never an investigation about?
Well, we know why. Because the Republicans are afraid Hillary Clinton is going to be elected president of the United States. They're afraid they're going to lose their majority in the Senate. The majority in the House is threatened, and I think that's why they extended this investigation for as long as they did. And I want to, point out to our audience, Z, that there were meetings and hearings that the Democrats were locked out of that were on this committee. And I'm not so sure of the legality of that, I don't know what the chairman can or can't do legally, but it did happen, and you have to wonder why.
Do we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we really do. Well, last week, let me segue into this. Last week, you and I had a little bit of fun with one of Donald Trump's new advisors, is one of his evangelical advisors. And by the way, the evangelical community is now calling Donald Trump a baby Christian.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, Michelle Bachmann, who is bat crap crazy by any measure, unless you're a conservative right-wing nut, is now, of course, advising him. Well, we haven't seen much of Sarah Palin since the last time, or from the last time she was on. It was right after her husband was injured, and she was, less than forceful, and the audience, of course, made sure that their watches were set properly and that they yawned 6 times a minute and whatever. But Sarah Palin actually has some advice for Donald Trump, and this may actually prove why she's really not doing a whole lot of surrogate work for the Trump campaign.
Yeah, and sitting right next to her during this was James Carville.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And I mean, so imagine in your head, maybe not James Carville, but the guy that did the impersonation of him on Saturday Night Live. And now imagine him trying not to laugh. In fact, imagine James Carville trying not to laugh or roll his eyes or slap her while she's saying this.
As someone who has run for vice president, you could be well situated to advise Mr. Trump on what characteristics or credentials he should be looking for. What would you tell him?
I would tell him to find someone who understands who the boss would be, someone who is not running to, somebody that he could serve with, who he wouldn't need a food taste tester around him, you know what I mean? He's someone who's going to be loyal to what the boss's agenda is. So that's going to be real important. And then someone with that experience too, again, coming from the private sector, connected to the essential people in this country, not part of that political establishment that has been part of the problem.
Sarah Palin, ladies and gentlemen.
And, that reminds me of the comment we heard yesterday or the day before from John Oliver, who said he could have just breathed audibly into the microphone and we would have gotten as much information.
Yeah, wasn't that beautiful? Yeah. He's gonna need, and what he should have, and he should have what I think that would be good, and maybe someone to taste his food.
It's just bizarre.
Really? Someone bizarre. To taste his food?
Yeah.
I mean, what is this, Game of Thrones?
I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I just don't know.
It's insane. What's insane is that she's still being trotted around, and people are putting microphones in front of her, and she's actually allowed to continue to talk publicly. I mean, I don't get it.
Nor does she. No, nor does she. She doesn't get it either. What about and I think that for all intents and purposes, we can call the panel on the television show The View comrades in arms. I think that they agree with us most of the time. And they have a tendency to get political from time to time, and actually have done a whole lot more with politics in the last year than I think they've ever done. What do they think about this whole Benghazi thing?
I don't know. Should we listen in?
I think that's a great idea.
All right, let's do that.
Hillary Clinton says that after a Republican committee spent $7 million on an investigation into Benghazi and found no new information, it might be time to move on. But the NRA spent $2 million on a brand new ad all about it. Even the head of the committee, Congressman Trey Gowdy, won't say Hillary lied about Benghazi. What more is there to say? And, newspapers are saying it's still there. So,
well, the cover of the New York Times, of the New York Times, which is the paper of record in this country, no matter what they tell you, says Benghazi panel finds no misdeeds by Clinton. So, that should be the last word. And yet the NRA is continuing to, to aggravate everybody.
That $7 million is our money. That's taxpayers' money.
That's the problem.
I didn't sign that piece of paper.
Isn't that something? It's $7 million. This was the 8th investigation. And one thing that really, and final, hopefully, the one thing that I found striking was that Dr. Ann Stevens, she is the sister of Ambassador Chris Stevens, who died during this horrible attack.
Yeah.
She said that she doesn't blame Hillary Clinton, that she doesn't blame Leon Panetta, but she does find some blame with Congress because had they provided a budget to increase security for all missions around the world, then some of the requests for more security in Libya would have been granted.
Right.
And that was a Republican Congress that didn't give enough money to provide the security in Libya.
But there always has
Isn't that fascinating?
There always has to be a fall guy. I know, I'm not always into politics like some ladies are on this panel, but I do watch a lot of TV shows about it. And there's always a fall guy. There's always the big company that's doing something crazy, and they have to have the head. And I feel sorry for her being that person that they had to put all that attention on.
Americans really need to get with the program because it was 11 hours of testimony. Now everybody says she didn't do anything. He's right. It's enough.
Accused the State Department of stonewalling, saying that they wanted these documents, and they did take a long time, over a year and a half, to relinquish those. But like you said, the NRA is using this. Don't think twice. The Republicans are still going to use this against her because even if there was no guilt involved, they're still going to say trustworthy, credibility.
Doesn't make
they're still
much
going to use it against her. I just said the RNC is already emailing about it,
but
the NRA has asked about it.
It makes no sense. Look, if you're going to go after her, this is part of the problem. When people, talk about, oh, she's not trustworthy, it's because people have done this. She sat with the Republicans. She sat with everybody she was supposed to sit to. She's talked about everything. She didn't do anything. Walk away. Get something new. We're bored with it.
But,
we're bored. It's like Swift voting. It's done.
We seem to be in a post-fact era.
Post-fact. No facts.
Well, there's no facts. No one is interested in facts anymore.
I'll disagree with you on that one because I disagree with you on the facts because this particular report, even Trey Gowdy, they mentioned Hillary Clinton's name fewer times in this report than the Democrats did, and they were trying to figure out, was the military at the ready? They wanted to know more about the documents being turned over. They did go over the facts.
They already put it in our minds that it's her fault.
Yes.
And the problem with society and social media is that once you say it one time, you can't get it out.
And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier.
And what did Joy Behar just say? We live in a post-fact world.
Yes, she did.
Pretty bold.
Yes. And here's the thing, right? Is you just put it out there, and then it's in people's heads.
It's been that way for a long time, and of course Fox News has led that charge and continues to do so. And people need to understand, and maybe we'll dedicate an entire show to who Roger Ailes is and was, and how he ended up where he is, and the millions of dollars that he makes, and the millions of dollars he's made for Rupert Murdoch. But we won't get into that today, but I think we should visit that at some point. They also mentioned the NRA is going to use this against Hillary. But what did you want to say before we go there?
Well, I wanted to say more about this once you put it in someone's head. There was, and this has always stuck with me, particularly about this one particular movie, the movie Disclosure, with Demi Moore and Michael Douglas. And Michael Douglas and his wife in the movie are walking out to their car, and they're talking about whether or not he should, pursue the trial and the court proceedings and all that, and that he believes he can win. And his wife looks at him and she goes, yeah, you might win, but nobody's going to care if you win. All they'll remember in 5 or 10 or 15 years is that you were involved in a scandal, right? And so what people hang on to is what they want to hang on to. And when you put out this information that Hillary Clinton murdered the ambassador, that she's, I mean, that I think is too bombastic for most people to believe, but they get that as, hyperbole. That she essentially murdered this person by doing nothing. And that's what they remember. And that's what they'll always remember. I know people personally, Tony, that no matter how many facts you present to them, they just go, well, this is what I want to believe. They don't say that out loud, but that's the basic undercurrent of the thought. It's like this is what I want to believe this.
I was at my son's last night for dinner to visit with my grandkids. And he was telling me that a family member has a sign up in front of his house. Now, he lives in a very busy street. And it just says, she lied, she murdered, she's a criminal. Is this who you want to be your president? And he made the sign himself, erected it himself, and thousands of people see that every day. Really? I mean, is that a way to change people's minds? Now, I know why he did it. I know who he's following. I know where he gets his information, as do you. And you've never met the man, right? You have no idea who I'm talking about.
You are correct, sir.
But he fits the profile of the person or people that you have mentioned in this podcast. It's astounding. It truly is astounding. Anyway, one of the things that they said on the View panel is that the NRA will use this. How do you think they'll use this?
To sell more guns.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking. I mean, you're saying that like a hello, dummy, but
that would be my guess.
All right. Well, we have some audio where an NRA is committed to spending some of their $17 million that they have in their campaign coffers for an ad attacking Hillary Clinton. Let's listen to this.
A lot of people say they're not going to vote this November because their candidate didn't win. Well, I know some other people who won't be voting this year either. Hillary is president? No thanks. I served in Benghazi. My friends didn't make it. They did their part. Do yours.
The NRA Political Victory Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So when he says, I know some other people who aren't going to be voting, he's walking in front of military gravestones.
All right. Well, I can't say this, so I just have to keep my mouth shut. F you. F you. Not you, the NRA. F you. And if I had money, I would go after them. I wouldn't go after Donald Trump. I'd go after the National Rifle Association.
Yeah, like apparently Bill Gates is going to be doing.
Do tell.
Yes, that was in. I saw that a couple days ago. He is putting some money towards gun legislation, commercials, and outreach.
Interesting. Was there a money number attached to this?
I don't know offhand.
Okay. 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 All right. Let's get to a little more audio. Then we're going to change some topics here. David Gergen, somebody that I respect as a journalist anyway, is really sick of Donald Trump. I think we can safely say that.
Like many of the conservative journalists.
Absolutely. So what does he have to say?
you can't ignore the truth of what he says or the lack of truth of what he says. And I do think in coming days we're going to hear an awful lot about a string of lies and exaggeration. I mean, let's go to something fundamental, and that is, I was really surprised he leaned as heavily as he did upon the Schweitzer book called The Clinton Cash. Yeah. That book has been basically discredited. Other news organizations have looked at it and said he has no evidence. He has no evidence that shows that money given by donors to the Clinton Foundation then resulted in actions by the State Department that favored those donors. And what Schweitzer himself has said, well, I think there's a pattern here, and we ought to investigate. I'm sorry, at this level, you can't slander somebody, and this was a slanderous speech, without more proof.
But in politics, perception is sometimes just enough to be reality. When you're trying to brand Hillary Clinton as crooked Hillary, the most corrupt person ever to run for the office of the president.
Look, it works, Kate, if you are reinforcing an existing narrative and it's true. All right? But you're going to have to stand up to the fact checkers, and it's not going to become an existing narrative and begin to solidify unless it's true. Now,
voila.
Voila. Well, again, these things speak for themselves. Is it making a difference? And I don't know that it is. And then, but here's, Z, we still have the email server controversy to get through. And even if she comes out of that clean, it's not going to be unscathed.
No, it's not. None of it's going to be unscathed. It's like I said. I mean, you could really, literally make anything up. There are enough independent blogs, and look, if liberals were scumbags, they would first of all make a lot more money. But a lot of the even the small liberal blogs, and I talk to a lot of them, and I know a lot of people who write for them. They have a very hard time with overly bombastic headlines, untruths, and they call each other on them. I mean, I've had conversations with editors of some of these sites that they say, yeah, I had to call so-and-so because the crap that he put up was total garbage and a lie. Now, do you think Fox and Breitbart are calling each other and going, dude, I can't believe you put that up. It's totally false. No, it's propaganda. This is what they do.
Yeah, some of the best. Just astounding. There's and as you know, I do a interview every morning on the USA Radio Network, which is very conservative. I guess I'm the token liberal, and that's fine. I'll take my lumps. I do it well. But the reality is that the conversations that we have sometimes are not about politics, although they do turn political. And this is a segue into something that you want to share with the audience about a woman that reached out to a lawmaker in Mississippi and the response that she got. But I have to tell you that conservatives have really taken a shortcut to their own reality. They really are cheating themselves out of an education. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If I see something online and it disturbs me, the first thing I do is check the source. Even some of the stuff you post, I check the source. Not that I don't trust you. Please don't take that the wrong way. But, some stuff is politically slanted for a reason. But if it's based on fact, is pretty much everything. Actually, I can safely say everything that you post is. Then I'm okay with it. Even if it's written from a conservative point of view, I'm okay with it. But you know what? Conservatives seem to be absolutely perfectly content with not doing their homework. That it's easier to talk the bullet points than it is to actually prove your point. As an example, Angie Austin and I had a conversation this morning about a poster that the Red Cross put out. I think we briefly mentioned it yesterday. That was disturbing because it was about pool etiquette, and it said that, behave. And it showed the white kids behaving and the black kids being rambunctious. And when I said to her that that was racist and, it was about white supremacy, she went off on me. Oh, you're being politically correct. And then she, referenced a Gap ad, whatever. The point I'm trying to make, if I haven't already, is that racism can be disguised as many things. But that poster was meant for children. So what impression do they get? See, I can answer the question, obviously. So can you. I'll leave it there. What impression do young kids get when they see something like that? It's not about political correctness. It's about an underlying need for white people in this country to still feel like they are supreme. Maybe a little veiled, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah. I don't know. Your example is well, a little weak, only because most kids, small kids, really don't care.
Bullshit.
Unless they're taught by their parents to care.
And so that poster teaches kids what?
I don't know.
That black kids act up. That's exactly what it teaches. You can disagree with me all day long. I'm not changing my mind on that. If you see a poster,
I agree. I agree that the poster is wrong. I do definitely have a problem with the poster. And
you don't think it sends a message to children that black kids act up and white kids don't?
Possibly.
All right. So, again, I don't know where you grew up. Were there many black people?
Yeah, I mean, many. Not many.
Did you interact with them?
Yeah.
When you were a kid? 8, 9 years old? 10 years old? 12 years old?
Yeah.
You are one of the few. Anyway, let's go to this other story. And I'll let you tell it. It's disgusting. It's wrong. I'm assuming that the lawmaker is a Republican, but I'm just guessing.
Yes.
Okay. That didn't take long. Once again, I'll let you take it from there.
You don't even need a headline that says Republican lawmaker did this. All you need is lawmaker did this. And basically what this lawmaker did was respond to a request from a constituent about medication for her child and others, and making it available and health coverage. And his response was for her to basically get a job and pay for it herself.
Huh.
And there was no indication that she didn't have a job. There was no indication that she was poor. But we do have her remarks that she gave to the Clarion Ledger. So let's play that, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
All right.
Yesterday I emailed the entire House of Representatives basically asking for someone to help us out navigating the very complicated system of Medicaid. The parents are coming across issues within the past few months where they're unable to obtain supplies that these kids need to get their medications. And when we're talking about type 1 diabetes, medication isn't optional. Insulin is literally life-sustaining. So I reached out to the House of Representatives asking for someone of influence to basically, hey, would somebody mind stepping up and maybe using your influence for good and help us navigate this system, see if we can figure out what the problem is and get it sorted out so that we can get these kids what they need. I got a couple of very nice responses from a couple of representatives, and then I got a response from Representative Jeffrey Geis, I believe is from Ocean Springs, who basically said, have you considered paying for those supplies out of money that you earn? Which, sadly, I don't have an additional $2,500 a month to pay for the supplies out of our own pocket. And that's what we would be looking at, to pay for diabetes supplies for one person without insurance.
How does that make you feel?
Not sure there's a word for that. Appalling is not a strong enough word, and it was beyond reprehensible. It was beyond appalling that a state legislator would not only have that attitude towards the constituents, but children, when he is honestly probably someone who would be helpful, because according to his state representative bio, he's on insurance committees and is also part of the Department of Human Health and Safety. The thing is, these families, they do work, and sometimes they work multiple jobs. They're not frivolous, you know. We're only asking for what we actually do qualify for. And I'm not asking for a handout. We're not asking for help for us. We're actually okay. I'm asking for help for all of these kids who need this medication.
So, yeah. So just to be clear, being diabetic can cost upwards of $5,000 a month without insurance.
I used to be diabetic.
Okay. So you know.
I know.
My mother and brother are diabetic, and Geis had to tuck his tail between his legs and issue an apology, of course. But you know what he said in his text was, "I'm sorry for your problem. Have you thought about buying the supplies with money that you earn? Thank you, Jeffrey Geis." You know, sent from my iPhone. Blah blah blah. You know, and as the Sun Herald points out, Geis probably wishes he hadn't hit the send button. But, you know, he thought he was dealing with, you know, one of those low-income moochers the GOP's always ranting about. But as it happens, Nicole Nichols, you know, is an actual person, and an actual person whose husband works two jobs, and she raises the kids. But they're a working family, and they can't afford health care for their kids or for their kids' diabetes. And this incredibly douchey piece of excrement flips this off on a text message to a constituent, mind you, and basically just tells her to go F herself.
Isn't it nice to be a Republican where you can do or say anything you want? You can hurt people. You can, I don't know, just be, like you said, a douche, and it's okay.
But I mean,
people get reelected you.
But the thing is, Tony, is who goes into elected office to serve the public and then looks at people like they're moochers and beggars, right? What are you doing this for? Why are you even in this position?
Let me answer that question this way. How many people do you know that would spend $2 million or more to get a job where you're paid $180,000 a year?
Yeah, well.
How many people do you know that would do that? No one, right?
Right.
It's about power. It's about control. It's not about public service. Oh, no, we have some great public servants. Don't get me wrong. Elijah Cummings. There are many. I mean, we don't need to go through the list. Sadly, most of them are on the blue side of the aisle.
Yeah, I do want to mention too.
And even many of them aren't in it to be good public servants. So, let's be honest about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do want to mention, too, that Elizabeth Parker from Liberals Unite, who's a relatively new writer for the site, put that piece together, and it's up there right now. And so, I think she joined us a couple weeks ago, Elizabeth Parker, and she's had some really good articles up on Liberals Unite.
Very good. Listen, before we wrap things up tonight, I thought that we might have a little fun at Donald Trump's expense. Charlie Sheen did Graham Norton's show, which is really a great show on BBC America. I think it's on BBC, period. If you've not seen it, you should. Anyway, Charlie Sheen, who, in his own way, is one crazy mofo. Okay? I think we can all agree on that.
I think you're right. Did you ever see the cartoon Pinky and the Brain?
Yeah.
Every time I hear Charlie Sheen, I remember Brain going, Charlie Sheen, Ben Vereen, shrink to the size of a lima bean.
Okay, so with that said, Charlie Sheen did an interview with Graham Norton, and they talked to Donald Trump. This is what they had to say. It's really quite interesting.
I have to say, I'm slightly surprised that Piers Morgan's doing it, because I don't know if you know, he's a big Donald Trump supporter. And I know you're not a fan.
I'm really not. No, I am reminded of a time about 5 years ago. I was at a dinner with my ex-wife Brooke and her family and this and that. And about halfway through, I noticed Donald staring at my watch. And so he started saying, listen, I'm sorry that I wasn't invited to your wedding, this and that, or I'm sorry I can't make your wedding. And I think I didn't invite you. So he says, but I want to give you an early wedding gift as a gesture from me and Melania. And she doesn't say a word. She's very sweet and very pretty, but just kind of sits there, Yeah. Anywho, so he says, these are platinum diamond Harry Winston, and he pulls off his cufflinks, and he gives them to me. And so I'm like, oh, gosh, Mr. Trump, you really shouldn't do this. He goes, no, it's the least I can do, and, have a great marriage and all that. Little did he know. So smash cut to about 6 months later, I had some jewelry getting appraised at the house, and she finished and was leaving. And I said, oh, yeah, there's another couple of pieces that I have that I'm very curious about. Would you mind appraising these? She said, no, what are they? I said, well, I explained the dinner and this and that. These are from Donald Trump, Harry Winston, flawless D's, platinum. She took the loop, spent about 4 seconds and kind of recoiled from it, much like people do from Trump. And so she says, in their finest moment, this is cheap pewter and bad zirconias. And they're stamped Trump. And I just thought, what does this really say about the man? That he said, here's like a great wedding gift, and it's just a bag of dog shit, Now, is that the laughter I can hear coming from across the pond at our country about this charlatan?
It's quite. Listen, it's scary times all over the place.
It really is.
But you're having very scary times. Yeah.
But I have faith that good and decent people will make the right choice, and the circus will leave town before it contaminates the Oval Office.
All right, there we go. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was great. Z, did I lose you?
I'm here.
Okay. Unmute that microphone.
You did for a minute because I had the microphone muted, but
yes, you did.
I'm back. I'm back out of the quicksand.
Anyway, I just thought that was funny and indicative. But anyway, we'll leave it there. We're going to be off till next week. Commitments take us elsewhere, and we promise to get in as many as we can every week. But we also have lives, and sometimes our lives are important. Like yesterday, I went to dinner and had dinner with my son and his partner, his beautiful woman, Leah, and their 3 children, and my grandkids. And so, no apologies. Tomorrow, you're going to be spending time with your parents. No apologies.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
So, anyway, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. So if you'd like to hear more of us, you can pay us to do that.
That's a nice way to put that.
You like that?
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Go to TNZ Talk, click on support, find out how to support us, and give us an incentive to do this every day. We do need the money. It does cost us something to do this. It's not free for us. And you can find out how to support us on a monthly basis by going to our Patreon page. And also you can download us and follow us and Twitter us and Facebook us and iTunes us, and everything you need to do is over there at tnztalk.com. Tony?
All right. Thank you, Z. As always, it's a pleasure to spend some time with you on air, because I certainly off air spend more time bitching and moaning about my lot in life these days, but you've been very good to listen, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. With that said,
thank you for saying that.
Not a problem.
Dab a little tear from the corner of my eye.
Bullcrap. Anyway, that is going to do it for us for today. Don't believe anything Donald Trump says. Now, the other day I said we're going to leave you with, something motivational. So let me offer this, and then Z will take turns. Unless you've got something off the top of your head, I'll let you go.
I don't. Go ahead.
All right. Well, let me make this simple. Trust but verify. Or be skeptical but verify. But verify. And if you don't know what that means, chances are you're not a voter anyway. I'll leave it there. For Richard Zombeck, I'm Tony Trupiano, and as always, I ask, and he asks, that you be well.
Oh yeah, can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.